Oh, so you know this face right here and you know the name Bruce Johnson, our WUSA 9 colleague and a legend in this town. He's really seen it all, and that's not an exaggeration. Bruce retired in late 2020, and a little more than a year later, he has some news. During his more than 4 decades at WUSA 9, Bruce Johnson covered every major story.
He's over. Bruce.
And even in retirement, he's not done making an impact. We caught up at his D.C. home in Upper Northwest.
Good to see you again. You're looking good, looking relaxed.
That's what I need to hear.
Bruce is now sharing one of the most important stories of his life, his own.
Because everybody's calling, they want to know what's in the book.
After years of writing and research, he finally finished it, Surviving Deep Waters.
I didn't want to write just a journalism book, okay? I wanted to write a story about a kid who grows up poor to a poor mother who was raised by a grandmother, and they lived in an alley. I mean, they were evicted so many times they stopped packing, and unpacking.
This book, he says, is about life lessons.
There was no black Superman, there was no Honda, that sort of thing.
What he learned growing up poor and fatherless in Kentucky.
You can get away from the projects, and the poverty and the violence and the blatant segregation and racism and all that other stuff. You get away, but you never get away clean. So you bring some of that with you.
To dealing with some of the aspects of his childhood he unknowingly brought to Washington, like his mother's deepest secret.
So I'm 40 years old. My mom's visiting me in Washington. Very proud of her son. So one time she comes and she's sitting in the breakfast room with me and she says, "Your father has died." And I'm like, Les? Les was never your father. Your father was a guy by the name of Robert Richard Marshall. And I'm like, what?
Bruce writes about his life following that riveting revelation, coupled with handling what would turn out to be some of the most trauma-inducing periods of his career, starting with his coverage of Mayor Marion Barry's administration.
It was a hard story to cover. I mean, there was a lot of personal disappointment there because at one point in time, our sons were almost best of friends, But in the end, I was the only journalist that Marion Barry allowed to speak at his funeral. He planned his own funeral.
He had a job to do. I had a job to do. He understood that more than all of us.
At the same time, Bruce says the hypocritical coverage of the D.C. crack epidemic was unbearable and shares a few stories he says are uncomfortable.
We would have conversations in the editorial meetings about, and I would ask, when we're going to start covering the drug use outside the black community? Because it's not just poor black people using drugs, okay? Because they'd all be dead of overdoses. The demand is coming from people who work and have income, who have means. And you'd get silence sometimes because the drug use had infiltrated our newsroom and every newsroom. And I don't recall anybody ever saying, "You guys have seen enough for today. Take tomorrow off, go see your shrink, your doctor, your pastor, or whatever." It was, let's get back out there. We can't fix ourselves. And, my, parent, and that generation was always, toughen up, suck it up. Are you kidding me? That suck up, toughen up, that's what kills you. Mentally first.
While Bruce is done with his book, he's not done being a journalist. From sharing his thoughts on stories surrounding race.
I just think in my old age that we need to stop reacting to our feelings when it comes to race.
To questions for the January 6th insurrectionists.
What is it about this country that has you so pissed off? You've been given everything.
Look who's here!
For a young black boy who didn't grow up with much, Bruce says there's one reason he was able to get to this point in his life: a successful career, a beautiful family, and his health.
Through life, grace has saved me from a number of instances.
Surviving Deep Waters, it's available today everywhere online and wherever you buy your books. And we have more on Bruce's story on our website right now, WUSA9.com.